Nice to have your company and welcome back into the show. Cloud computing promises, of course, impressive gains when it comes to infrastructure agility, efficiency, cost reduction. But the greatest barrier to cloud adoption is still security. 65% of organizations, 65% list security as their #1 concern. Sanjay Mehta is Managing Director at Trend Micro and Kurt Hansen's MD at Checkpoint Software Technologies, both joining me for a discussion. Warm welcome to you both. Just before we came on, it's almost trite to say client security is #1. What's changed, Sanjay, on that score, from when you started in this game to today?
Sure.
What's basically the new threat that wasn't there 5 years ago?
The threat's changing pretty dramatically towards targeted attacks. So if you roll the clock back 10 years, hacking was a sport. It went into fame a little bit. Now it's all about fortune. So the amount of money in the black market around hacking is astonishing. Those targeted attacks can plague somebody in the cloud just as easily as somebody in the physical world. And you've seen a big change in Australia just over the last 12 to 18 months in terms of cloud adoption, where it really feels it's gone from a cloud last philosophy to a cloud first philosophy. So people are getting their heads around the problem, businesses of all sizes, and are moving into the cloud and doing that when they can feel good about their data and feel that it's secure.
Are they doing it, Kurt, though, recognizing those same said risks? Or are they being sold a kind of a solution without necessarily flagging potential problems as well?
Well, I think both. I mean, the attacking industry has become a lot more sophisticated as well. The people that will steal the credit card information aren't necessarily the ones that will actually use it. Right. So you can be, the technologists are still there hacking, but there's obviously the business, whether they be socially minded, government sponsored, or just pure criminals.
What typically, just for a layman out there, what is the redress? Presumably you're both acting as advocates for this, so you're offering a solution.
Sure.
But if still that firewall isn't sufficient, Sanjay, what can a client do? What is their redress?
Yeah, it's interesting, and at the end of the day, you're always protecting data of somebody else, right? So a business is worried about protecting their information, but it's probably the information of their customers, right? So you can roll that redress back a number of layers. And if you roll the last 15 years of security, there hasn't been much, frankly. And even if you look at legislation and privacy bills and data breach notification acts and everything else, there's a big question about that. And their shareholders in that actually intermingle so much that it's an interesting conundrum about what should happen. So massive data breach in the U.S. just over the holidays. 1 in every 3 U.S. households affected through the target attack. The target attack, sorry, not the targeted attack. But what is actually going to happen, right? What are the payment processors going to do to come down that? What are the shoppers going to do to come down on that? And what is the role of any security vendor in that, right? We all do our best to protect, but when the adversary is as severe as it is now, it's a pretty fine line.
Well, and yet the biggest of the big being Microsoft. You could understand patches are issued, hours after the event. They have the budget to kind of roll out the revisions. But Kurt, walk me through, with, of course, XP ending this year, what are you saying to SMEs in particular are some credible threats,
well,
not just kind of the idea?
There's going to be a lot of unsupported operating systems out there. People will continue to roll on with that, right? So they won't get their updates. Right. So that's obviously going to be a big issue. But I think if you take the issue of the SMEs, big business is under attack. That's where a lot of the money is. But in Australia, 50% of our employees work in small, medium business, right? And so therefore, and most small, medium businesses don't have an IT manager, don't have policies in place, and don't do the education around that. Simple things as password protection, all of those things around keeping yourself secure. There are a lot of the basic things that are not necessarily happening. And of course, most of those businesses wouldn't have a firewall, wouldn't have the right software solutions in place to protect them from some of those attacks.
Is there a kind of a pattern of behaviour that the attackers follow or look to be following? So you're seeing this.
Well, what we're seeing
is
it's getting harder and harder to attack big business. Of course, it still happens. Of course, it gets reported upon. So the hackers are moving down the chain.
The soft targets.
Yeah.
You concur with that?
Yeah, small business is definitely a target. So I think a lot of folks think, I'm not a big business, I'm not in the limelight, I'm not in the industries that are most targeted. that's all false. So even there's a hack of a major U.S. publication not long ago. They traced it back 2 levels to a small IT shop in Australia, right? So you're by no means immune. And to Kurt's point, you don't typically have the skill set, the staff, the resource, the training, and everything else. So while, to loop back to your cloud comment, while the cloud can be seen as a scary place, the odds are that that cloud provider is doing that for their business. So they have a lot better skills, a lot better methodologies, a lot better processes, and a lot better technology than you can afford yourself as a small business, let alone an enterprise.
Linked to all of this is, of course, mobile banking. And you're putting out there the view that what? 2-step verification is not going to be sufficient. Of our big 4 banks, who's most wise to that reality? Who's moving ahead, anticipating it? Yeah. Who's planned, who's rolled out something new?
So I wish I was clued into what all the big banks were doing so they could spend more money with Trend. But the reality is that more than half the internet banking traffic now is coming over a tablet or a smartphone. And that's coming through an app, not just Safari or whatever browser's on it. So it is a huge part of the problem. By the end of this year, there'll be 3 million instances of mobile malware for the Android platform. So
this is not worth it, is it, Kurt? I mean, if you're a small business, why give myself the angst? I'll just go to my branch office, surely. Given everything that Sanjay says, why would you kind of give yourself that added headache?
Well, I think we're all users of mobile banking, right? So it's the ease and the convenience.
Yeah, but I mean, this is dollars and cents. This is not just kind of an idea. Yeah. This is your wealth being targeted.
Well, and a lot of what people at home and people in small business don't realise is when they're opening up their mobile banking platform, they may have an email connection open, they may have other connections open, and obviously their computer therefore can become a place where bad guys can get in there.
We're going to continue this discussion after the break. Stay with us. More with my panel in just a minute.
To everyone who placed a gift under the Kmart wishing tree this year, thank you. Together with the Salvation Army and Kmart, your generosity has brightened the Christmas of someone in need. Please join us again next year to share the joy of giving.
Whatever their personality, every dog deserves leading nutrition. For healthy digestion, a shiny coat, immune support, and healthy teeth, choose Pedigree.
All right, kids, come inside.
Oh, Chloe. We got an open door policy.
Hey, shut the door.
Oh, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Oh, really?
New Mortein Nature Guard Auto Protect Odorless keeps bugs out for you. It's adjustable, works automatically, and its odorless formula contains 98% natural ingredients. So it's tough on pests, not people.
More smart, more safe, more tea.
Do you need some help?
M&M's. Can't resist them.
A game of ducks and legends. Of people in whites and a heavenly view. Of 3 men to make just one run. And of perfect days spent in the shade. Some things can never get better. Others can. CommBank is helping Adelaide Oval give fans a better experience. Who can help to keep your business moving? CommBank can.
Welcome back. Our panel discussion with Sanjay Mehta, Managing Director at Trend Micro, and Kurt Hansen, MD at Checkpoint Software Technologies, continues. And we, gentlemen, were just remarking before the break about why would you bother? As if to say it's the idea of going down some routes like mobile banking that might seem to up our productivity. If the cost then comes back to bite us of that being compromised.
You have to remember, a growing percentage of the population every day is further and further away from the concept that you'd actually go into a branch. Right? So the customers of the big banks are people who only know online banking. right? So the paradigm has shifted. The question now is, how do you deal with the paradigm shift? You're not going to be able to shift it back.
All right, let's talk practicalities. SMEs, payroll, budget for this particular, I suppose, looming threat. How much should someone put aside?
Well, it depends on the size of the SME.
String.
It depends on the size, how many employees they have and how many devices they have. But you know, most organisations would spend a considerable percentage of their IT budget, or should, on security, on protecting themselves from, you know, attacks that they will invariably have.
If indeed you find a situation where not just the front shop window has been compromised, but bank details have been then interfered with, what role for the bank itself? What guarantee, what, I suppose, peace of mind have you got that a bank will take that loss and assume it as theirs? Sanjay?
Sure. You can be pretty confident in that with any reputable bank, much like you would if the bank was robbed in the physical sense, right? With that, you're seeing an increasing amount of adoption, at least talk leading to adoption around cyber insurance for corporations to say, it's almost a question now of just when it's going to happen to you, not if you're going to be hacked, but when. And when it happens, you really need to know how you're going to respond. Respond to your customers, respond to the public, and maybe respond with an insurer to say, I need to get protected with this now because I know it's going to happen 6 months, a year, 2 years from now.
Bring your own devices. Let's discuss this, because this kind of goes both ways, doesn't it? This is employees that are bringing things into a work environment, but as much the hardware that an office will allow you to take home. What are the typical issues that throws up? Kurt, from where you're sitting?
Well, it's BYOD is the common thing, but it's also BYOA. People are bringing their own applications into the workplace as well, and downloading them and then connecting to the work network, and that could obviously span viruses and other bot-type situations into the...
Is there any advice that you'd offer on that front?
Well, most CIOs, have given up in terms of controlling BYOD, BYOA. So now it's a question of what levels of security they can use. So there are obviously solutions that can obviously scan, the devices and keep the core repository of the enterprise or the business pure or protected.
And that ultimately is encryption, is it? What really is driving that?
With all of this, there isn't one silver bullet. So it's what we talk about is that you need a multi-layer of protection at the network level, at the web level, and also around procedures and policies.
Sanjay, you've got to jump in here. Last thought.
I think Kurt's on the right track there. It starts with education, right? So if you're going to let people bring in their own devices, then you also need to put the policies and the training in place so they know how to use that device. I think if you went to CIOs today and said, how many of your employees run Angry Birds on the same tablet as your corporate access, the answer is way too big. Yeah. So that's got to get controlled.
So much more we could have discussed. Time's against us. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Sanjay Mata, Managing Director at Trend Micro, and Kurt Hansen, MD at Checkpoint Software Technologies. That's our show. We'll see you next week.